Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Ola, thank you for being here. We're going to go ahead and get started. We want to make sure that we use as much time as possible to give space for you to ask questions. We have some slides that we will be presenting, and we'll try to get through them as quickly as possible so that we can have a discussion after. As we get warmed up and settled in, first, this is the Slido link, and we'll be sharing it a few times through the slide deck, so you'll have plenty of chances to access it. And just sharing first the agenda. So we're going to start off with some SIGCHI trivia. We will have updates from the ACM by the president of ACM, Yanis Ioannidis. We will have the SIGCHI EC present to you some updates, and then the CHI steering committee, and then open it up for questions. Starting with some SIGCHI trivia, which I'm going to hand over to Carla Grigio, our VP Operations for. So Carla, come on up. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Carla Grigio. I'm the new Vice President for Operations. But today I'm here to help us warm up a little bit as we settle in the town hall. And we prepared a little trivia to see how familiar you are with all the SIGCHI conferences. So this image right here is part of the logo of a SIGCHI conference that happened in the past 3 years. Who can guess which conference this image comes from? I'm seeing, no, David, no cheating. No reverse Googling. Any guesses? Almost. ICMI? Yes. Who said ICMI? Yes, Pejman. This comes from the ICMI conference in Costa Rica, not Ecuador, from 2024. Let's try this one out. Jelly? It's a jelly conference, sort of. It's not jelly, it's a kind of pastry. What? TEI, yes. Where was this TEI held in when in Bordeaux? Of course, this is a cannelé. Great. Let's see about this one. Any guesses? Nobody? I heard Costa Rica? Costa Rica, but which conference? CSCW in Costa Rica, yes, in 2024. Yeah. So let's see about this one now. Something in Canada, they say. Over here. Any other guesses? I heard somewhere saying it looks like an owl. Yeah, it is actually an owl. Greece, yes. So what happened in Greece? Interesting. Fact. A fact about fact is that it's not a SIGCHI conference, which I was reminded of while preparing this trivia itself yesterday. It's not fact. Mobile HCI, yes. Congratulations. So this is the logo of a new SIGCHI conference. Yes. Big applause for the interactive health people. Which is happening in Porto in July for the first time. And last, this is part of a future SIGCHI conference. Any guesses? Something education. EduCai, yes. Good job, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carla. And this is to remind you from the opening remarks, just wanted to say we're a family of 30 conferences, CHI and 29 other specialized conferences, and the number is growing. And this is to remind you that this is a town hall to also recognize the kinds of things, initiatives that we take on for all of our conferences. And with that, again, a reminder for those of you who just walked in, this is a link to the Slido QR code. And over to Yanis. Where is Yanis? There we go. Yanis Ioannidis, as I mentioned just a minute ago, is ACM president, and we all know him because he has been kind enough to be here present at the town hall for the last 3 years as well, his whole term as president. Thank you, Yanis, for making this your home, and over to you.
Thank you, Neha. Indeed, CHI has become my home, or second home. It's a great pleasure to be here. I am timed. I have been warned, and I'll have to take the new picture of me. This is from last year. Before saying very few things for 5 minutes of what is happening around ACM, although I have to have my first slide be for Vicky Hanson. She has been my guide as long as she was the CEO of ACM, and I owe her a lot about what I did during my presidency. There's no more need to say anything about Vicky, but she's always in my heart and mind. Very few things that I'll talk about is, as you know, as president, I started this ACM 4.0, 4.1 initiative of 15 presidential task forces. I am crazy sometimes with doing these things. I've shown them in previous town halls. I won't go into the details. It's about what we serve, how do we change our way of serving members, our serving society, what do we offer as products and services, and how we operate inside. These 14 PTFs existed in last year's CHI. The last one is AI use. I'll say a few things about it since it's a new thing, the new kid in the block. And they are at various stages. Some have finished, some are finishing as we speak. A few are operating, and a couple more, yes, even now. They will start, and they will continue past my presidency, shaping a new vision and a new strategy for ACM. One of them is about new growth areas. It is starting to operate on where we should grow, and CHI has a, if you want, a pathfinder for growth. You see 30 conferences, so many things that are happening. Of course, the elephant in the room is AI that is occupying every space. And ACM is doing 2 major events for AI. The first one is the ACM Conference on AI and Agentic Systems at the end of next month in San Jose. It's a conference like everything else, research papers and other activities, tremendous interest from industry, but also the ACM AI Leadership Summit, which, you know, various luminaries and members of the community will come and talk about various aspects of AI. It's not a real, it's not a regular, a typical conference, and it will be 3 days. You know, Turing laureates and other laureates will be there. Panels. The first 2 days is panels and keynotes. The third day, various SIGs, including your SIG, will have activities in parallel. And also, yes, there are these things called journals, which are very important and maybe will become more important. We are starting new journals. I want you to pay attention to the AI letters, which are for short, very quickly reviewed things that are very hot, and check it out for your AI-related work. The other presidential task force I want to talk about is the new kid on the block, responsible use of AI within ACM. This came as a reaction to the comments that we received, including from your community, on the use of AI within Digital Library. Now we have a whole presidential task force with representatives from many boards and also members at large from the community. And your community has helped us shape how we move in many ways. I won't say much, of course, about it, but the first thing that this PTF started with is, what are the principles we should follow? And here they are ones. I'll just mention the first one, which is the ethical alignment with the ACM values that are already published and we are already trying to follow anyway. And the key thing is that whatever use of AI will come as a question, will start from the principles, and then there will be a framework that will be followed by the part of ACM that has the question. For example, the Digital Library is the Digital Library Board. Something on the use of AI in CHI papers will be the SIGCHI executive or the CHI steering committee, depending on where. And then taking care of the risks and the dimensions and what optionality should be given to the community. So there's a whole framework that this PTF is coming up on the responsible use of AI within ACM. We're not talking about responsible AI use in general. I have been, as a president, I have been going to many meetings to learn about the community, to get to know the community, and hopefully to bring the ACM message of Mother ACM to the community. In every one of my 2 terms, I targeted the top 10, top in terms of size of participants. And I've been to all, the union of the 2 top 10 lists were 13 conferences. I've been to many others, and these are the ones. And I want to point out that CHI is one of 2 that I've been in all 4 years of my presidency because of your importance, because of your special nature. And I think I've said that before, in addition to my birth home, which is SIGMOD, Management of Data, SIGCHI is the only other SIG that I'm a member of, because I love you guys with what you do. Last but not least, ACM Open, as you know, with many council decisions, extremely strenuous work by volunteers and staff, and the ACM representatives are there in 3rd row. I won't name them all. We came to the decision, council decisions, and as of January 1st, all ACM publications and related research artifacts in the ACM DL is now openly available from everywhere by anyone. Anything is, you don't have to be a member, you don't have to be a subscriber. You have access to all the content in ACM. I think many people worked for this, including from your community, from our community. And the applause is very deserving for what we did. The only society that is doing this, it's a huge experiment financially with its risks, and ACM is subsidizing quite a bit of it. And of course, in order to balance between the openness and sustainability, some of the things of the services on top of this content are now for a cost, but thousands, as you see, more than 3,000 institutions around the world are now part of ACM Open, so everything, both the content and the services are open for everyone, and many other tens of thousands that did just this. Last thing I want to remind, this is my last term as president, we have general elections. The candidate slate is there. The announcement will be out in some single-digit number of days, and you'll have a little bit more than a month to vote. please vote. You have to be an ACM member, not a SIGCHI member, just a SIGCHI member, but you have to be an ACM member. Vote for president, two amazing candidates, for vice president, two amazing candidates there as well, secretary treasurer, and council member at large. These are the slates. Please exercise your voting rights so that you get to see in this podium and in other contexts the one who you think is best. That's it. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I'll quickly give you an update on how what Yanis just talked about at the ACM level, how that kind of connects to us at the SIG level. So if you see the governance structure here, we have the ACM Executive Committee, where the president, the vice president, past president, secretary, treasurer are a part. And actually, these slides did not update. This was with ChatGPT that we created this, and it is not totally accurate. So this is not very responsible use of AI, because the secretary and treasurer are actually one person. And then there's also the past president who's on the EC. And then the SIG governing board chair also sits on the EC, because that is how important SIGs are. And then oversees all of the SIGs. And so all of the SIGs are part of this governing body, where there's very much discussion and active participation. And so SIGCHI definitely has an active role to play there as SIGCHI president. I've also been SIG governing board chair for the last couple of years. And what I want to say is really to stress that, that one, we are totally informed. We have been an active player in these conversations. We've been sharing knowledge, best practices, setting an example one way or another. And that we are among the most active, enthusiastic SIGs and constantly giving ACM something to think about. And that gives me great joy. I want to mention a few things that we've been doing at the cross-SIG level, which I think is really great because we're working more with other subdisciplines of computing. Yanis already mentioned the responsible use of AI, and I want to say that if there are some of you who feel passionately about this and would like to be involved in this effort from the SIGs, and please come to the Co-Designing SIGCHI Future session, which is today at the 4 p.m. session. Yanis mentioned the ACM AI Leadership Summit. So the third day of the summit is for the SIGs, and there is also lots of collaboration on designing the program for the third day. And for that as well, if you think that you'd like to play a role either in supporting the doctoral consortium, which is the Future Leaders of AI program, or being on the program committee, which is basically short papers being submitted for this, please let me know. And also to attend, you can register soon. So it's register now is not accurate, but anytime this week the call should be up. So or the reg page should be up, so you'll be able to join. And then we have been with SIG Access, we proposed the Vicky Hansen Early Career Research Award in Computing Accessibility. The process for awards takes a little bit of time, so I wanted to share with you that we have proposed it, and we're really excited about doing this because both honoring early career research and also computing accessibility were close to Vicky's heart, and so this has been really awesome, and to have the support of the family in doing this. We're awaiting a council approval. We will know in June. There's other co-sponsorship initiatives. So we have the Collective Intelligence Conference. We have, which is joining forces with HCOM, which is a SIG Web conference, which is also happening for the first time. And with that, I want to move on to finances. So Hachuan Wang, who's our VP Finance, can only get in a little bit later today. So I'll quickly mention some of this and then hand over to Luigi, our Executive VP. So as you know, we've been working hard to manage this transition to ACM Open, and all of the conferences have had to change their CFPs, so thank you for that. You've also been highly cooperative in supporting us with the APC's transition, so we instituted, along with all the other SIGs, this financial hardship waiver program. And our goal with that was really to manage this transition, not just this year, but over the next few years to kind of ease into the world of open access. So I also want to just thank representatives from all of the conferences who have come forward to help out with the APC's committee. APC stands for Article Processing Charge. And then there's the revised overhead. So we went through, again, with the SIGs, an exercise to look at overhead. And overhead, for those of you who know, this is basically money or fee that we have to pay for being part of a large organization. And so all the conferences have their overhead that they pass on to the SIG, and the SIG then pays overhead onwards to ACM. And we had an overhead formula which we had kind of revised after COVID because there had been an impact, and we revised it again most recently in October. And the result of that is that we do have more funding, and we're thinking of ways to make those funds more easily accessible to conferences. That also will be discussed in the afternoon session today. And with that, I'll hand it off to Luigi to talk about the budget.
Good afternoon, everyone. So briefly about the budget and finances. You can have, if you want more details, in the QR code, there is a report that is public on the web. So for what concerns the current fiscal year that will end in June, this year, SIGCHI is going well, which is the positive thing. We have a projected income of 2 million, which is good, of course, which also will help us to increase the financial reserve, which is an amount of money every SIG needs to have to support 50% of the cost of all its conference. And since we have quite a lot of conference, we also need to have a pretty big financial reserve to cover these expenses in case they happen. And this financial reserve will likely increase to 6 million, which is well above the financial requirement that ACM put for SIGCHI. This is the current fiscal year. In the next fiscal year, we'll start July 1st up to June 30, 2027. We have just completed our budget and submitted to the ACM for the final approval. The total SIGCHI budget, including the EC expenses, which means travel grants, which means support to conferences, to chapter, etc., is a little bit more than $8 million, for which the budget that the EC is going to spend for, again, support to conferences, travel grants, etc., is 1.8 million, and the rest, the other 6 millions, are costs projected from each individual conference. So it's always a big budget that we have. With this amount, we still expect to grow a financial reserve a little bit from the projection to 2026 up to 7 million as well. So we are spending mostly for the community, and conferences are spending for their own budget, of course, to keep conference going. And with all the spending, we still have projected positive financial growth for the SIG that help us sustain in coming years, also supporting new initiative if needed. Again, if you want more detail, the QR code will bring you to a public report that our VP Finance created for you. And with that, we will move to community support, which is also part of the budget we put on. And for that, we'll invite Dani on stage to talk about the Development Fund and Gary Marsden Travel Award.
Hello, everyone. Hope you're all having a good time. So, in this fiscal year, we have committed $58,241 to strengthening our community, like funding summer schools, supporting greater inclusion of scholars, especially from regions which are underrepresented, like Global South. And this fiscal year, which is currently going on, we have already supported around 51 recipients from across 15 conferences. And we as the executive committee recognize the immense potential of this program, not just in enabling attendance, but in shaping who gets to participate in our community going forward. Right now, we are actively exploring how to evolve it further, thinking through new structures and ways to decentralize this program and enable broader and more meaningful participation across regions and communities. As you all know, we are all welcoming here. We are actively involved in molding, forming most of these programs. So I would like to take this opportunity to welcome you to engage with us in molding some of these programs for the future. With that, I would like to hand over to my colleagues to take it forward. Thank you.
In case you want to scan the QR code, last chance. All right, so updates from conferences. Oh, sorry. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There we go. All right, updates from conferences. Our team is composed by Matt Jones, our VP Conferences, Jerry Alan Fayos, and myself. We are adjunct chairs for conferences at SIGCHI. First of all, I want to highlight 3 new conferences that are happening this year. We have Interactive Health, which is happening in July this year. SCF, the Symposium on Computational Fabrication, which was already an ACM conference, but is now a SIGCHI conference. So it's taking its 11th edition at the end of the year. And then in September, we have a collaboration between SIGWeb and SIGCHI, with CI and HComp happening co-located. So HComp is an ACM conference for the first time through SIGWeb, but CI has been an ongoing conference with us. There's other conferences that are joining the family. We have Critico and Educai, who are well ahead in the process of joining. And we have 2 conferences that are considering joining, which are Augmented Humans and CHEER, the Human Information Interaction and Ritual Conference. So we're very happy to see so much interest in joining SIGCHI. Here's a very complicated summary of the finances of the conferences. There's one thing that I want to point out in particular, which is Kai here on the right. We had a surplus of 1.3 million last year, which have been very good for the finances of the SIG. So thank you, Naomi and Vanessa, and all of the organizing committee for that. That was a big effort on sponsoring. You can come and talk to me about finances if you want, but this is the big picture of our finances per conference. As you can see, there's a lot of blue, so overall, our conferences are not only successful scientifically, but also financially. All right, so some of the changes that we're going to discuss maybe today and tomorrow, or this afternoon, are some of the changes to conferences. So allowing conferences to access a portion of their surplus. This is what Neha was talking about earlier. So conferences make surplus, and that right now is accessed through the SIGCHI Development Fund and travel grants. So we are considering other ways in which conferences can go back to their previous surplus, and also decentralizing the way travel awards work. So right now, SIGCHI received the request for the travel awards, but we want conferences to make those decisions to best fit their needs. Also, Tokai, right now the papers are presented at CHI, but we are considering disseminating Tokai articles through other specialized conferences as well. With that, I pass it on to Dragan.
Hello everyone, I'm Dragan Ahmetovic. I'm the VP for Accessibility and on the Executive Committee. Here's just a brief slide to update you on what's on the agenda of the Accessibility Committee. So we are working towards implementing early check-in with the conferences to help them forward their accessibility aims early on. We are also exploring hybrid engagement. We had a wonderful session Monday, and there will be follow-up sessions online very soon. We have gathered a lot of important insight from this year on venues, accessibility and dietary needs. We are doing better than before, but we are looking forward to improve. So please let us know what we are doing well and on what we can do better. Thank you very much, and back to Neha.
Okay, so a couple of new initiatives. Firstly, we have mentioned this in a couple of town halls before, but just to reiterate in physical presence, we've been thinking of doing an online conference at the end of the year, and this is not a conference that would have its own call for proposals, but really one that will allow for people who have not been able to travel for any number of reasons at other conferences to present their work. What this looks like is something that we want to co-design, and so we are going to be talking about this in the later session today. I also want to share with you that the next Future Summit, so the previous Future Summit had taken place in 2024 in February, and this was a way for us to get together with others in the community to think about the future of our conferences, and we're doing the next session, the next Future Summit on the 16th to 18th of November in Paris in France. And we will be talking about how we're thinking about doing the session, but we really want it to be, again, participatory. So we're going to do a call for proposals of conversations that we want to have very soon. And then an invitation to you all to join us in advancing these conversations at the panel today and then for the conferences tomorrow. And I think Nacho mentioned this, but if your conference, if you are on a SIGCHI conference during committee, hopefully you have representation tomorrow at this lunch, and let us know if you don't. Moving on to Matt.
A responsible use of AI. Have a look at that picture of me. I know that many of you are worried about AI, but look at it. It's given me hair. I've taken Manjaro. Let's embrace AI. First of all, I'm the Vice President of Conferences. Could you raise your hand if you are a part of an organizing committee or a steering committee for any of our 30 conferences? Raise your hands. Look at that. Thank you so much. Give yourselves a round of applause. Now, the thing I want to specifically talk about are some of the changes to the CHI steering committee. But before I do that, could you raise your hand if you are or ever have been a member of the CHI steering committee over the last 11 years? Let's thank these guys. Thank you so much. So this CHI steering committee was formed 11 years ago, and it's because of that huge amount of volunteer labor over that decade plus a year that we're at this place. The wonderful community, the collective, the success that CHI is. Now, for the last 18 months or so, we've been involved in a process to understand how we can build on that success and create a structure for the steering committee with the executive committee so that we are better aligned, better integrated, communication works more purposefully. And we've come to that point now, and from July this year, we will have a new steering committee. We have appointed the new adjunct chair for CHI, who is Anna Cox. Anna, can you wave? Where are you? Somewhere? Anna. So Anna will be taking on that role. And Anna, with a group of us, will then be looking at nominations, self-nominations, other nominations, through our open call. We want to invite all of you and your colleagues to put your names forward to join this new steering committee. The best is yet to come. Be part of it. Navina will be talking about how you can take part in all those open calls. But just again, I think it's important. This steering committee, 11 years, working absolutely tirelessly through the pandemic, through global political changes, through all sorts of issues. Thank you all very much. Let's give them another round of applause. And this says volunteers. And who's speaking to that? Oh, excellent, not me.
Not you. Yeah, thank you, Matt. A couple of things about volunteers. We are going to focus a little bit on volunteers, more on volunteers in the coming year as well. As SEM is a volunteer-based organization, as Matt also said, the steering committee of CHI is made of volunteers, the EC is made of volunteers, and we all volunteered in some capacity for these or other conferences as well. So it's good to talk about volunteers, to recognize volunteer, and to build infrastructure for volunteers when needed and when possible. So one small things we did this year was to create this web application. that is free for you to use. You can scan the QR code and you can create thank you cards for your preferred volunteer, here or not, and you can create this card and share it privately or publicly, and then we'll go on a wall like this. This was a picture made yesterday at midnight, so maybe not updated anymore. So this is for you to thank volunteers. There is already some thank you for instance, student volunteer, for the general chairs of this conference, etc. So have a look at this application if you can. There is again QR code, and the address is thank-sichchi.netifly.app if you don't want to scan the QR code. And with this, still on volunteer, I'm giving the stage to Neha.
Thank you so much, Luigi, for initiating this effort. And I want to just take a moment to thank Susan Dre. So Susan has been a VP at large on the SIGCHI Executive Committee. She has been involved and committed fully to SIGCHI for the last 40 plus years. She was there for the very first CHI that took place, and she has chosen to step down owing to a lot of illness-related issues. And I just wanted to invite you all, if you scan the QR code, and if you have known Susan, to maybe send her a note using this app. I don't know, it's bittersweet. Susan has really been a huge supporter, and we really just thank her for her efforts. I invite you all to do the same, and maybe a round of applause. And over to open calls for various things, and then Helena Mentis will talk about the next SIGCHI elections.
Hi, everyone. So several events and new roles have been mentioned in the past several minutes, and we have open calls up for all of them on our submittable portal. Certainly SIGCHI VP at large, which will focus on supporting global initiatives and regions, including SIGCHI's community engagement with HCI communities in Africa. There's the SIGCHI Futures Call, which is a combination of calls for organizing the SIGCHI Futures Summit in November, SIGCHI Online, ideally in December, and the Federated SIGCHI Conference, which again is sort of a drawing on many of our specialized conferences and bringing together the best of their work. Also the open call for the CHI Steering Committee, several roles that are aimed at supporting steering the CHI Conference Series. And then we have also reopened our general open call for volunteers. This will remain open and is open for volunteering for SIGCHI's other 17 or so subcommittees. And over to Helena.
Well, it's getting to be that time of year again. Every 3 years, the SIG has another election for the roles, the leadership of SIGCHI. That leadership will start next year, but I'm already starting to talk to folks about running for these positions. I've been tasked by our president to run the election again this year. The terms of the next SIGCHI EC will be 2027 and 2030, if I did my math right last night. If I didn't, don't tell me. The roles are president and executive vice president. They run together as a team. We have vice president for membership, vice president for communications, vice president for finance, vice president for accessibility, and 2 vice president at large members. I put together I originally, when I did this slide, said notional for a reason, because this was the dates that we followed 3 years ago. I think they're going to be perhaps the general dates again, although I haven't gotten verification from the ACM, so that's why I said notional originally. The ACM runs the election, so if you are an ACM member, this is the SIGCHI, as opposed to the Giannis pointing out about the ACM elections. If you're a SIGCHI member, you will receive a ballot through the ACM to do the voting. I will put out an open call for applications and nominations around October. Keep your eyes open for that in your inbox. We'll do it on our usual communications channels. If you are a SIGCHI member and you haven't recently gotten an email, you might want to go on to ACM and check that you have a little tick box that says, yes, I can get emails from the SIG. I wasn't getting those emails for a while. Turned out that was the reason. The slate will then be announced somewhere around January. The election begins in about May, voting ends in June, and then the new term starts in July of 2027. If you have any questions, find me at the conference. I'm willing to tell you all about how the SIGCHI works, talk to you a little bit about these roles and responsibilities, or you can just email me at my new email address, because I just moved to institutions about 1.5 years ago. And please step up to be the next leadership for our SIG.
We're definitely running short on time. I will just quickly hand it over to Navina to talk about Voices of SIGCHI, the newsletter, and then it will be over to the steering committee.
Voices of SIGCHI is our quarterly newsletter, which we launched at last year's town hall at CHI 25. The April issue is out now, lots of rich stories and reflections. We invite you to submit. We do quarterly open calls. So if you are doing any sort of community building activity, any experimental initiatives at conferences, we really want to hear from you and share what you're doing with the community. So please do look out for that. And then over to the steering committee.
We'll talk more at our virtual town hall in June. Over to Erin.
I kind of actually do look like that. That's kind of scary. Okay, so where do we go from here? I'm not going to try to pad this out too long because I think we want to have lots of time for questions. So the first thing I'd like to do is to introduce our CHI 2027 chairs, because the team is in the room, and I'd like to give them an opportunity to come up and say hello to all of you before we just jump into CHI 2028, if that's okay. So could I ask our two general chairs? Now, hands up in the room if you know where CHI 2027 is going. Hands up. Woohoo! You see, look at that. They're ready for you. So I'll ask Amy and Anin to come up and just introduce themselves and to tell you a little bit more about Pittsburgh.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being at the town hall. I'm Amy Ogan. I'm a professor in the Human-Computer Interaction Institute at Carnegie Mellon University.
And I'm Anin Day. I'm the dean and professor at the Information School at the University of Washington.
We are very excited to welcome CHI in 2027 to Pittsburgh, which we have a beautiful convention center right downtown in the lovely heart of Pittsburgh. I am sure many of you have been there before, and we hope to welcome many of you there next year. There will be plenty of things to do, lots of activities, wonderful continuation of this year's program format, which we will have the chance to discuss shortly, as well as many activities to do outside in the beautiful weather in mid-May in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
The conference is going to be held, as Amy said, in downtown Pittsburgh. There'll be over 100 restaurants within a few minutes walking distance of the convention center, access to wonderful museums and other cultural sites right downtown. So there'll be, as Amy said, there'll be plenty to do during the conference.
Good luck. Thank you. So the whole CHI steering committee is made up of different subgroups that do different pieces of work. So one group I'd like to point you towards that is having a big session in the auditorium at 2:15 is the future of peer review. So if you're interested in that particular piece of work and what the proposals are, what's being discussed, what's being co-designed with the community, please come along to the auditorium at 2:15 this afternoon to discuss that in more detail. But I'd like to invite Cliff and Julie now. I hope they're here. Yes, they are. See, they're in the wings. That's just like magic by magic. They're going to come and introduce CHI 2028. Who thinks they know where CHI 2028 is? Okay. Who is 100% sure and is willing to bet their life on it? Good answer. I hand you over to the answer people.
Hiya, I'm Julie Rico Williamson. I'm a professor at the University of Glasgow and the CHI Steering Committee Site Selection Chair.
I'm Cliff.
He needs no introduction. So where are we going in 2028? I just want to talk a little bit around, why we do site selection, how we do site selection. So the CHI site does rotate around the world so that we can engage with communities all over the place. And this is a really core part of our ethos. This is why we rotate, and it's a really important part of site selection. We also follow a very rigorous process. If you want to do a deep dive, you can go to the CHI Steering Committee blog to look at that, but I will give a brief overview here before we announce. So for CHI 2028, we were tasked with a huge job to bring CHI to a wholly new place. So we actually conducted a very broad search for 2028. We explored 37 potential cities across all new locations where CHI had never occurred. And when we're looking at these sites, we're actually considering a very complex group of often competing needs. So we're looking at things like the convention center infrastructure, accessibility. We did a community consultation to look out new sites that we hadn't thought about. We look at the local community, safety, sustainability, and visa requirements. So we have a lot of different factors to balance when we look at these sites. We issue a request for proposals to elicit bids from potential cities, and this document kind of outlines our requirements, our priorities, and our culture as a conference. From the bidding cities, volunteers like myself and Cliff conduct site visits to assess the convention center in person and the surrounding areas. There's only so much that you can get from promotional photos made to sell the venue to you. And the CHI Steering Committee then agree a ranked list alongside with the Executive Committee, and we initiate contract negotiations. So it's quite a long process. It's quite a lot of work, and you can read all about it on the CHI Steering Committee blog.
Yeah, and in the end of that process, we found a great location. We've already announced this in South Africa, right? So no surprise there, and we're so happy to be there. Me personally, especially, I lived there for a little bit in the late 1990s. But how many think of it is in Joburg? How about Port Elizabeth? Durban? Hogsback? Yeah, that's the town I lived in. No, it is in Cape Town, indeed, in South Africa. Beautiful Table Mountain. It is going to be a fantastic location, an incredibly vibrant and lovely city that we're excited to be there. And of course, in being in Cape Town, we remember fondly Gary Marsden, who was a professor there for a long time. But now, of course, both the country and the region are filled with a huge number of really great HCI researchers. And so I'm really happy to announce the General Chair's team for CHI 2028. These are folks who have been indefatigable advocates of both SIGCHI and of the region for their entire careers. So General Chairs Anicia Peters, Ian Oakley, and Melissa Densmore are taking on the leadership challenge of this conference. Oh, you poor suckers. But it should be a good time. I think they want rooms to be bigger, is what I'm hearing. So you can go ahead and try that first. So thank you very much to the volunteers, and thanks to you all.
So what I would say is we really also want to hear about the format changes. And of course, we'll take some questions now. But we also have a dedicated session tomorrow to reflect on the format changes, this way of working. I hope you feel that we've tried our best to put the confer back into conference. Like you are having more time to confer with your colleagues, more time, more spaces, even when you're lining up. We see you're conferring. This was not by design, but it is a moment for conference, for engagement, for conferring about the talks that you're not getting into. But honestly, it is a time to think about like, what is the format? What are the implications for that format in the future? So what does reviewing look like? There's a session at 2:15. What is the reflections you have on the conference format? Please come to a session tomorrow at 4:30. But we'll now move to Q&A. So put up your hands. There's Slido as well. Do you want to do Slido first or some? Well, maybe one and one. Yeah. Okay, I'll get you want to take them? Do you want to read them out from Slido? Oh yeah, maybe with a microphone.
Questions from Slido, and I'm just taking the one at the top. Will there be options for people to publish at CHI next year who are not willing to travel to the US to attend the conference?
Yes, there will be.
There you go. Nice and easy. Yes. Simple. Another Slido?
Next question. Do we still pay $300,000 a year for the still awful program web app? If so, how can we justify that?
VP Operations?
So VP Operations, a bit of an unfair question because our VP Operations has just taken on the role very, very recently, but she does have a lot of thoughts on it, so I do want her to speak for it.
Yes, please go easy on myself. Yeah. So yes, we still pay for that, about that amount of money. But I would like to clarify that it's not just what we as CHI attendees experience as the program's app. It's also a tool to help conference organizers design the sessions of the programs. And it's not just for CHI, it's for any SIGCHI conference. You saw the collection of 30-something logos has access to this system. It was funny that FACT was proposed as one of the SIGCHI conferences. It's not SIGCHI, but FACT actually wants to use this system as well to help in the organization. The goal with this money is to reduce volunteer workload. Part of my goal for this year is to evaluate what are the priorities for the development team behind this app to keep reducing volunteer workload. I am open to suggestions, especially from program chairs, TPCs, and anybody that had to interact with the Koala application to discuss what these priorities are.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll take one more, I think, Aaron, from here, and then perhaps if people in the room want to put their hands up. So this one, I think this one is quite a popular question. Why are so many presentation rooms so small? And why not let people stand rather than queue outside? Over to the general chairs.
Hello. Hi, I'm a general chair, Ayman, along with Nuria. And I thought you guys were going to ask about the plushie, so this is a refreshing change.
It's coming.
Okay, so we've mentioned many times before, if maybe some of you haven't heard, the venue is picked about 5 years in advance. The projected growth when this venue was picked would be about 4,000, 4,100, I believe, which is also what we budgeted for when we were going through with ACM. And as you may have heard in the opening, we have 5,300 some odd people here. And so we actually increased our space by 20% when we had our registration numbers come in so high. But we can only do what we can do. There was one other thing, I'll be honest, that we put some smaller rooms were scheduled with like 3 or 4 best papers in them. Once we identified that, the TPC and their assistants worked for, I think, about 6 hours straight to shuffle them around. And so we're seeing less load today because we did this optimization. Why are we not allowed to stand? Because if you stand, you're blocking accessible routes. Someone with accessibility needs or to get clearance to get into the room cannot get into the room. There are fire codes also to be observed. So sorry you can't stand. Sorry, it's just the rules. Safety is first.
And can we just, again, applaud Ayman and Alita and Nuria. Everyone is involved in this conference. It's really hard. Thank you very much indeed. There's a couple of questions on here about peer review. I know lots of you are interested in it. Would you like to say something about that?
So questions include, can we reduce the total number of papers published at CHI? Quality have massively dropped. Our AI in peer review policies seem underdeveloped. Review quality is waning and is a huge threat to CHI. So all of these questions are going to be discussed in the next session. So please go to that if you care about peer review. There's also questions about why we have so much financial buffer and using it more to make things cheaper. So to this point, I'll say that I guess, we didn't expect that Kai would do so well. So that was a big win. And also the overhead formula has just changed, so it's just kicked in with this fiscal year. And so we do want to keep using our resources to make things easier for our conferences and attendees. And so rest assured that we will be thinking about ways to use that responsibly.
Right, we're going to come to the real life now. So put your hand up if you would like to raise a question or make a statement, and one of us will come to you. And there's one there, first of all.
Hi, Wendy Mackay, and I just have a question about the why of having, so we've moved from 4 days to 5, which increases the cost. We've gone from 1 broken weekend to 2 if you want to travel from a distance to a conference. We used to have in 4 days 14 paper sessions plus some plenary sessions, and now we have 9 for papers, which are only in the morning. And those of us who are researchers, yes, I go to things like this and panels and all kinds of other events, but why are they not scattered throughout the conference? Why do we decide that researchers are less valued and they get half the conference and then everything else goes in the rest? Why? What was the reasoning behind that, and why is that set in stone for next year?
So, Aaron, do you want to take that, or I could invite one of your colleagues who was involved in that process?
No, I'll ask Regan, because I think we want to hear from lots of people on the steering committee.
That was a lot of questions. First of all, we went from 6 days to 5 because we had workshops before, so we have integrated them with the program, and so we actually are saving money. And sorry, we don't have courses now. Well, we do now again, as part of So what we did was we created containers that everyone can use how they want to see fit for their conference. So this is the first year that the general chairs have tried this because it was just put into effect. We hope that people at this conference can see the potential of those afternoon containers. I think I would disagree that researchers are only interested in papers, because as a researcher, you run workshops, you do panels, you do all sorts of other things. I do agree that stuffing the papers into a short time is very hard to get them all in. And so I guess that's 4:30, is that when
Yeah, tomorrow.
There's a whole hour, 90 minutes devoted to this topic that that's tomorrow? Tomorrow, at 4:30 that you're running and Cliff's running. Why am I with the mic then? But so we can talk about things in detail then. This is an experiment, of course, this year. We want to stick with it for a little bit. We want to tweak it and revise it, open to all sorts of feedback. I don't know if there was something else specific that I didn't address that you wanted to. Oh yeah, you can go to the chi.acm.org to see our blog posts on the motivation behind all this, which was about the scale and the finances.
But scale doesn't answer the question about why do we now have 26 in parallel sessions for papers versus if you have the 5 days and you can spread things out. I mean, I still don't understand what the reasoning is for the half-day split. It's not that researchers don't want to go to things. I think most of the people in this room go to those panels and all those other things, but I don't see why they can't happen in the morning and some papers happening in the afternoon. That's the real question. I don't understand
We could totally do that in the future. We are open to changing this format. I think the goal, as Aaron said at the beginning, was to put the confer back in conference. We got a lot of feedback from the post-conference surveys over the years. Why am I flying across the world? To basically watch YouTube videos. Because there's no discussion time at the papers. You have 30 seconds sometimes to ask a question. You want more discussion time around things. So we've been talking a lot about how we can increase the amount of discussion that's happening around papers. We're not doing that with this new format right now, but it would be great to do that, right? Because you're flying around the world to meet with people. We should take opportunity being in the same place at the same time. And so we got a lot of feedback that people were not happy about that. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. And just remember, I remember going to Town Hall, it was 2 or 3 years ago when these changes were first raised. And there's been a great deal of interactions and collaborations and co-design by the community. But as Regan said, we are listening and we want to learn and we will evolve. I've got a question here which I think we should answer. EC and SC are volunteers. Yes, we are. But let's be honest, it is compensated in kind with free travel, registration, etc. Please, can we be more open about this and its costs? I think that's one for the President to answer.
I mean, we can certainly be open about it. What, well, what exactly? Like travel to?
It's about registration, any comp registrations and travel support.
Yeah, so we do offer travel support, and I think it's something that we have always done, and we're always willing to reconsider doing. We've supported the volunteers who are putting in all of their time at CHI to serve either the conference or the SIG, and we offer support to those on the EC and SA who are doing that. I don't know if there are others as well who we support. I guess committee members who are also contributing time to these, we also try to support them.
Thank you very much. Back to the room. Raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question or make a point. There's someone right at, yes, there's someone right down here. Who is it? Who is it? My eyesight is so bad I want to see. Yes, now I recognize. Here we go. Say who you are, where you're from, and then the question.
Francisco Nunes from Fraunhofer Portugal Laicos. I wanted to ask a question regarding the numbers we saw in the beginning of the conference, regarding how many attendees from different regions of the world. And in these presentations, we always see very few people, either from South America or from Africa. And I think it's a great news that the conference will be going to South Africa. But I was going to ask, like, in addition to this movement and Gary Marsden, what are we doing to ensure that we are going to have more people from these regions where we see always very few numbers there?
Well, one thing I can say from the perspective of the SIG is, and there were questions related in terms of supporting more people. That is definitely something that we want to see. We want CHI in South Africa to be a success, and if that means investing more in the community, investing more in efforts to build up the volunteer base, that is definitely something that we're already looking at. If you have a desire to participate, if you want to offer your suggestions, we're open to that.
The question here, CHI has gotten too much expensive for what it offers. How does the ECSC plan to cut down the cost? Could you just raise your hand if you think CHI is too expensive? Okay, that's useful to see, right? So now over to the steering committee to reflect on that.
Yeah, so I mean, one very straightforward way to cut down our costs would be to fundamentally change how we present our research. So over the years, because of how we've decided to move the conference around from location to location, it means we are getting to a point where we're rapidly diminishing the pool of potential candidates. You heard from Julie, 37 cities were considered. Probably 30 got ruled out within a day of considering them because they just do not have a venue that has 20 or 22 or 26 or 30 parallel rooms. And we're seeing it today. You know, here we are in a very large room that's nearly at occupancy for this particular session. And then afterwards, we'll all move out, and suddenly there'll be queues at rooms that only have, 1/10 the size of this space. Venues like this are not built, really no venues are built for CHI in the type of flexibility that we'd actually like to have, saying our paper growth is 10%, 20%, we keep on having, more people who want to come and show their work. So one very rapid thing we could do is just move as a community to say, actually, having 22 parallel sessions in rooms that we normally have, those days are now gone. That we now move purely to interactive experiences where we have poster sessions for the vast majority of papers that are published at our conference. This would mean we would suddenly open up a huge number of venues, places that are much more affordable, where we can basically have much fewer numbers of rooms like this in venues that are much more geared for large numbers of people with large numbers of posters. Now, we're not doing that today. We're not announcing that, but we're saying this is what you're feeling, what you're experiencing by having queues, by having this kind of asymmetric, rooms are full and not full. Because one thing we've always prided ourselves is like the best work gets accepted. If we suddenly start saying, well, actually, we're only going to have 1,000 papers, and that's going to be a hard limit, that will change the nature of what the CHI conference is in ways that we probably collectively don't really want, because it'll no longer be the best, it'll just be some arbitrary number that we cut in at. So we have to have this kind of conversation. So I would encourage you to, when you're thinking about the future of reviewing, when you're thinking about the format changes that we've got, what would it actually mean if we no longer expected everyone to have a paper presentation? Maybe it's best papers and honorable mentions that would have presentations in much smaller numbers of rooms, not smaller physical rooms, but much fewer rooms, should we say, and that the vast majority of people then move into more interactive spaces. If we did that, the venues get much, much cheaper. These venues like this are super expensive. Like this probably next week is being rented by KPMG, who probably pays 10 times what we pay for it. Like we are a poor conference. Like we honestly are a very poor conference. Like when I tell people the size of our budget, the number of delegates that we have coming, the amount of sponsorship that we get, we are poor. Okay, this is not a very well-funded conference series. You look at some of the other conferences out there, some of the AI conferences, they get so much money thrown at them. I'm not saying that that's necessarily what we would want, but we're working on very tight margins. So yeah, it's incredibly expensive, like for each individual registration. And all the members of the steering committee, we pay registration to come to the conference just like all of you do. And my university and other universities ask this all the time. And it's because of the nature of how we've grown and how we've constantly tried to adapt and evolve and still fit into giving presentations in rooms just like this all the time. And we might be reaching an inflection point. Different members of the steering committee say we're going to reach it sooner than later, but it's definitely something we're going to have a conversation with everyone about. And if we change, then we can open up much different venues, and then costs can change quite dramatically.
Thank you, Aaron. Just remember, we are all the CHI conference. So feedback, get involved, help shape, and we will take all feedback on board. And Neha, I think there are a couple of questions around CSCW.
Yes, so what's going on with CSCW, both in terms of finances and review process and also support for CSCW? So let me say a couple of things. Firstly, okay. I didn't realize, so if I was going to ask if Carrie is here, but I think you're the chair-elect. So
Hi, I'm Jessica Vitek, chair-elect of the CSCW Steering Committee and general chair of the big red line that you saw going down very far in that. So first things first, what are we doing with paper submissions? We didn't want to shout this, so I'm not going to shout it. I'm going to say it very softly into this room that rolling is fully open. So you can submit a paper right now to CSCW. So yay, yay. The Amy Bruckman and Eric Gilbert are leading the rolling effort, and they've been beta testing it, and they're happy so far, so they decided to open it up. So we are not having any more deadlines for the foreseeable future. CSCW will be fully rolling. There will be a point in time in a given year. If your paper's been accepted, it can be presented at the next conference. It will be published immediately. There is no issues. Things will go online as soon as they're ready. So these are all really good things. What's going on with our lack of income? CSCW 2025 is very misleading because of backlogs in the review process. I actually had to process almost an entire cycle from 2024. And publications fees are incredibly expensive. We spent well over $100,000 just to Sheridan to publish. And I invited 525 papers to present at CSCW 2025, of which over 200 of them were from 2024. There's that. There's also us expanding outside of North America. CSCW has only been outside of the US once before 2024 when it went to, before Costa Rica. It was in China in like 2008. And then 2 years in a row, we did Costa Rica, and then we did Norway. This is planned. We knew that it was going to be financially hard for us to do that. And I would personally say, obviously I'm biased, 2025 was incredibly successful. We had the largest, or one of the largest number of people attending. We are going to continue to push internationally. We have SIGCHI's support for us to do this, but very complex, and I think I will just give one more thing that I said in the questions is, honestly, we need more support. We are not the flagship, but we are one of the biggest conferences after CHI, and I am not an event planner. I am not an expert in contracts, and I would love for people like me and the people who are organizing these conferences to get some more support, because guess what? We made a couple of mistakes. AV cost well over $100,000 in Bergen, and that was really problematic. So give us a little bit of grace. But now you can submit to CSCW anytime, and I think
Thank you.
otherwise we're very happy with where we're going.
Thank you. And remember, of course, we need financial stability, but actually our success is the intellectual, the scholarship, the research. So let's give CSCW 2025 and all CSCW a round of applause. Thank you very much. We have a question here from the floor. Could you say who you are, where you're from? Thanks.
Yeah, sure. Jean-Daniel Fequet from INRIA, France. I wanted to raise the fact that with a few volunteers, we are pushing for an alternative to the growth, to help the growth of KAI by having international satellites or hubs, so that KAI is not only the one centered location where everybody should go if they can, because sometimes they cannot, but starts to spread over different places. We propose Paris. But for example, the Chinese will not be able to attend in Pittsburgh because visas are a problem. There are some countries who will not be able to pay to travel for the US and not for the hotel in the US because it's much too expensive. So there are many, many reasons why people around the world are challenged to attend KAI, and it will probably not improve over time, especially with this problem of growth. So we ask you to consider seriously this idea of trying to think about distributing KAI by providing an interesting experience. So not staying just all alone at home at 1 a.m. in the morning, trying not to make too much noise for the kids to sleep, but having something intermediary, like a satellite or a hub, instead of this big thing in the center of some world where 50% or 80% of the rest of the world cannot actually attend.
Thank you. I'll ask Cliff too.
Yeah, that's great. All great points, right? And we have some information coming out. We've been working on this, partially with your group, many with others. ACM has been talking to us about this, about what's possible and what we can do. The devil's in the details on this, by which we mean there's a lot of things to sort out.
But the status quo is the standard way of saying no. So we are trying to push so that there is let's talk about it later, let's wait a bit, let's have a discussion, a conversation, and it will come eventually in 10 years from now.
Yeah.
So,
but saying yes too soon could wreck KAI, right? Like, we have to be careful. We're balancing that. We're saying yes to the right thing. So, you know, I hear what you're saying, and I understand challenges with hybrid. I'm the guy, I think I'm the only person ever to lose money on KAI, right, running a KAI in 2022. Thank you, Jessica. I appreciate the applause. And it's because I went all out on hybrid, right? I went full duplex. I tried the Cadillac plan of hybrid. That's an Americanism, sorry.
Rolls-Royce.
And it did not work, right? It did not work, sorry. And I don't think the technology's there yet. Just look at all of the issues we're having this week. Now, that doesn't to say there's not hybrid solutions. That's a spectrum of what hybrid means, and we need to be investigating this. My fervent hope is also that technologies get better year over year, and that we do get better technologies for hybrid. So hybrid solutions, some of these other location solutions, we're all looking at that, but the answers are not as easy as just do it.
Okay, thank you. Before we go to the floor, I want to raise, we heard it from Yanis, the wonderful ACM Open, and Yanis mentioned, of course, some of the paid-for services and other aspects. So the question here is, how can authors opt out of AI podcasts or other outputs based on their publications on the ACM Digital Library? Are they getting notification about that? And we're very pleased to have representation from the ACM. And Wayne, I'd ask you to address that if you could.
Sure. Hi, I'm Wayne Graves, ACM's Director of the Digital Library. The short answer up front is, at the moment, you cannot opt out of that. Lots of grumbles. That's good. It's interesting. So there's the AI, you know, it's a hot button for everybody, except Aaron, who liked this picture on the screen. So it's experimentation is what we're doing. And we tested these podcasts across the library community, who's responsible for, you know, most of these ACM Open relationships and the support of the student communities and that. And they tested very well. And some of the things, and maybe we'll have an opportunity to talk about this in a little more detail, some of the, I think the anomaly the DL board is wrestling with is the opinion of the author of the material tends to be, you know, very different perspective than the readers trying to consume these materials. And the podcasts seemed like a really nice way. and it was received very positively. And the exposure of the links back to the original content seems to be driving more views, more reading of those articles. So I think at the moment we're considering it an experiment. I welcome the Digital Library Board, I should say. We welcome the feedback from the author, from the reader, and we're accumulating statistics around usage. And I will say we get lots of very positive feedback from users of the Digital Library.
Thank you, Wayne. We have a question here at the front, and then I will come to the microphone.
May I
here.
compliment?
Oh, sorry, Yanis.
Just 1 second, yeah. The responsible use of AI within ACM, I mentioned it. I didn't go through it. One of the things that is being considered is various types of optionality, opting in, opting out, and so on, which will be, when the framework is fixed, whoever has an AI use question in front of them, they will be deciding what type of optionality is appropriate. Should, the president of the world be deciding, or the particular person engaging with that content or that use, and so on. So exactly what Wayne said, but also on the governance of AI and the approach to AI. It is work in progress on what needs to be done, taking in data, of course, as Wayne said, but also based on our principles. So it is work in progress.
Thank you. So we've got 8 minutes until the session ends. We will run all the way to 14:15. So I'm just going to come here to the front, and then we'll move to you being very patient at the microphone.
Hello, I'm speaking on behalf of Sunday here to my right. And the question is, this is my first time attending SIGCHI. I know paper acceptance is hard, but I'm concerned not seeing much representation from the Global South. What initiatives are in place to encourage research and contribution from the Global South at CHI, apart from hosting in South Africa? I believe there is a lot of research potential to be tapped in from there.
Hello everyone, I'm Danny. I'm AC for Community Support. I completely agree. We have to do a lot, but there are programs, there are opportunities, like many of you know. Chapters is one of the ways that we are currently reaching out to underrepresented communities across Latin America, across Asia, and it's still very early days because we don't have this kind of a pool of researchers in this place. I come from Mumbai, I've been based in Mumbai. We have luckily a small group of HCI researchers there, runs a conference called India HCI. That's why brought me here. I understand the importance of having local communities and supported programs to integrate, welcome them into SIGCHI. So that's one way we are looking at chapter networks, looking at opportunities like Gary Marston for inviting people to conferences, SIGCHI conferences. But again, it's an open community. We are all welcoming to have an interesting discussion around this. For example, we have futures discussion happening today. You are all welcome to discuss, and let's
Thank you, Danny.
listen.
Thank you. We've got 3 people. I've asked them to say who they are, ask their question one after the other, and then we'll try to take all of those questions. Maybe the 3 questions will be connected. Let's see.
Okay. Zhitong Lu from George Mason University, and more context related to Ron's question about satellite conferences, because earlier today we SIGCHI Asia Committee, we had a discussion about this, and I think to add some context, like currently it's very hard for some people from certain countries to get visa. One example is like a student in Hong Kong. She applied for a US visa last November, and she just recently got a visa. So I've heard some strategy that maybe we do something like early visa support letter, but imagine how early we should do that. Yeah. So I think satellite hubs or conferences definitely should be considered.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So I heard there were 1,200 visa support letters issued for Barcelona.
And written by one person.
Written by one volunteer who's somewhere here.
Hi, Emma McDonald to Uveen. A follow on that question somewhat. I was really disappointed to see that this year CHI 2026 did not only not offer hybrid, but threatened workshops that wanted to offer hybrid participation in violations of ACM's code of conduct. It has always been true that there are many members of our community who cannot be all in the same place due to reasons of accessibility or visa or family responsibilities or budget, and those are things that have only been made more and more pronounced in recent years. I hear you on hybrid is difficult to do. I've been a hybrid chair for assets twice, but it's also not impossible to do. And I think that it would be a little bit ridiculous for us as human-computer interaction researchers to give up on the idea that we could hold a meeting with everybody, when so many of us hold these hybrid meetings with our colleagues and our collaborators all the time. If it is, I believe it is true that we don't yet have a satisfactory hybrid answer, but I think it is a really inappropriate answer to that question, that means we stop innovating. So I would really love to see opportunities to think creatively about how hybrid could best serve CHI, and think in solidarity for those who can't necessarily attend a hybrid event either, or a satellite event either.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you. So far, two connected, and then...
Hi, Andrew at Kern University of Illinois, Chicago. One of my undergraduate ethical issues in computing students recently expressed concern about the ACM Code of Ethics, that there's no enforcement mechanism for corporations. And I just like to, specifically around privacy and transparency, and I just like to extend concern about that to the Digital Libraries Committee and the policy about AI and our content as authors, as researchers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Thanks, everybody. We're at the 3-minute mark. So we've heard the concerns that came up about the hubs, about the hybrid. We have been thinking of ways to offer and support as best we can, whether at CHI or at other venues, and we'll continue those conversations. If you care about conference formats, if you care about SIGCHI futures in general, please come to the session at 4. Come to the session on peer review now. Is it in the auditorium? Yeah. And if you're staying here, we'll get out of the way quickly.
Yeah.
So thank you all for coming to CHI and for coming to this session.
And can you do what I see many of you doing? Take your garbage, as they say in some parts of the world, and recycle it in an ethical, responsible, and sustainable way. Thank you all for coming.